Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am Abdul Jabbar Shaheen, a former member of Punjab Public Service Commission. In this video, I will be sharing with you interrelated questions which were asked to medical graduates during the interviews in the Punjab Public Service Commission at different substations by different medical experts. So, the first question uh, of today's video is, what is diabetes mellitus? What are the literal meaning of these two words, diabetes and mellitus? This was the question which was asked by one of the medical experts in one of the interviews. Diabetes is a Greek word which means to pass through or to siphon, meaning thereby excessive urination, to pass excessive urine. And mellitus is a Latin word which means sweet like honey. So diabetes mellitus means passing excessive sweet urine. The next question that was also related to the diabetes mellitus was, what are the types of diabetes and what is difference between them? Well, you know there are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. And what is difference between them? In type 1, insulin is absent, whereas in type 2, insulin is present though in low quantity, but it is ineffective. And in type 1, the cause is basically autoimmune. And in type 2, the cause is insulin resistance. And in type 1, it can be at very young age. But in type 2, the diabetes develops at the adult age. And in type 1, the onset of the disease is sudden, whereas in type 2, it is slow onset. In type 1, the body weight is normal or low, but in type 2, it is often obese. And treatment of type 1 diabetes is insulin, whereas the type 2 diabetes can be treated without insulin or with insulin, but by managing diet and by drugs, medicine. The next question which was asked was, what are three microvascular complications of diabetes? Well, microvascular complications are caused when your small blood vessels, arterioles, or capillaries are damaged. The first one is retinopathy. The retina of your eye gets damaged because of the damage caused to the neurons, nerve cells, and also to blood vessels. There are two causes. Small blood vessels are damaged and nerve cells are also damaged. And it results in reduced vision or blurred vision, or it can result into complete blindness. The second complication is neuropathy. Neuropathy is when your nerve cells get damaged and you feel numbness, tingling, and loss of sensation. And it often results in foot ulcer and then amputation. Then is third complication, nephropathy, in which kidneys are affected and there is a lot of protein in your urine and ultimately the kidneys failure. The next question was, what are three major macrovascular complications? Well, let me make one thing clear. The questions were not asked in the order I am explaining. No, they were asked by different experts in different interviews at different substations of uh, mm, Punjab Public Service Commission. I have just sorted them, grouped them, and sequenced them so that you can understand them better. Three major macrovascular complications. Well, macrovascular complications are caused by atherosclerosis. I'll discuss atherosclerosis also. But what are those three major macrovascular complications? First is CAD, coronary artery disease. What happens? It results in angina or heart attack. Second is cerebrovascular disease. It results in stroke or transient ischemic attack. Then the third complication is peripheral arterial disease. Your limbs, particularly the legs, are affected. The ultimate damage is caused and gangrene develops and it may result to amputation. And these complications, these macrovascular complications, they occur due to accelerated atherosclerosis, that is fat deposition in arteries. Well, the next question is the mechanism of nerve damage. How do the neurons or nerve cells get damaged? Well, one of the main cause of the damage of the nerves is when your blood vessels get damaged, the uh, nerves get reduced supply of oxygen and nutrients, and it results into nerve ischemia and then dysfunctioning of nerves. This is one cause of nerve damage. The second cause is that excessive glucose in your blood enters your nerve cells and it is converted into sorbitol, and sorbitol is accumulated in the cells, and due to osmotic gradient, water enters the cells, your cells swell and they are damaged. And there is third cause also due to which the neurons are damaged. That is high glucose in your blood produces more free radicals and they damage your nerve membranes and proteins and DNA, and that leads to degenerated function of nerves, degeneration of nerves. So these are the three causes of nerve damage or neuron damage. There was another very interesting question. That question is, what is difference between diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus? Well, the question was asked. There are two features which are common in diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. What are those two features? Those two features are polydipsia, that is excessive thirst, and polyuria, passing large amount of urine. So these two features are common in diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. Well, polydipsia is basically the result of polyuria because excessive urination leads to excessive thirst. Now, diabetes mellitus, now I am comparing uh, these two conditions. Diabetes mellitus is basically an insulin problem, whereas diabetes insipidus is the problem with ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which is produced by hypothalamus and stored in the posterior pituitary. In uh, uh, diabetes mellitus, excessive amount of glucose pulls water into urine, and in diabetes insipidus, small amount of ADH is also called vasopressin, causes water loss. Our kidneys do not respond to ADH. So this is the difference. And in diabetes insipidus, you will not find any glucose in the urine, and the urine will be very dilute. The while doing comparison, I have compared about 5-6 features of these two diseases. One by one, I'll explain them. Diabetes mellitus, what is the problem? High blood sugar. And diabetes insipidus, excessive water loss. And in diabetes mellitus, urine is sweet. In diabetes insipidus, urine is dilute. Diabetes mellitus cause is insulin, and diabetes insipidus causes ADH. In diabetes mellitus, thirst is increased, and in diabetes insipidus, same. It is increased because this is a common feature. And in diabetes mellitus, urination is frequent, and in diabetes insipidus, it is very frequent. Polyuria is more severe in diabetes insipidus. In diabetes mellitus, blood glucose is high, and in diabetes insipidus, blood glucose is normal. Well, the another question related to diabetes was, what do you understand by DKA and HHNS? Well, DKA stands for diabetic ketoacidosis, and HHNS stands for hyperosmolar hyperglycemic non-ketotic syndrome. Now, what is the difference between these two? Diabetic ketoacidosis, there are three symptoms of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is also called triad of symptoms. One is hyperglycemia, the other is lipolysis, and the third one is acidosis. Whereas in the in HHNS, hyperosmolar hyperglycemic non-ketotic syndrome, in this condition, you have severe hyperglycemia. You have hyperglycemia and DKA also, but in HHNS, the hyperglycemia is more severe. because hyperglycemia in HHNS is when your blood sugar is more than 600, whereas DKA can occur at 350. And the second uh, symptom in HHNS is dehydration. And the third is hyperosmolarity. Hyperosmolarity. Now, the DKA occurs in type 1 diabetes, whereas hyperosmolar, hyperglycemic non-ketotic syndrome condition is in type 2. In DKA, insulin is totally absent. Your pancreas do not produce insulin. Whereas in HHNS, insulin is present, though in low amount. In DKA, fats are broken down and ketone bodies are formed. Whereas in HHNS, you don't have any ketone bodies. In DKA, you have metabolic acidosis, whereas in HHNS, there's no such condition. Acidosis is not there. Now, by the way, why there's no acidosis in hyperglycemic, hyperosmotic condition? Because insulin is present and some amount of glucose breakdown takes place in that condition. Whereas in DK, there's no insulin, so only fats are broken down to compensate the um, the absence of uh, energy which is produced by glucose. And then blood glucose in DK is high, whereas in HHNS it is very high. Dehydration in DKA is moderate, but in HHNS it is very, very severe. And onset in DKA is sudden, rapid, whereas in HHNS it is slow. And in DKA, breath is fruity because of ketones. And in HHNS, the breath is normal. So this is the difference between DKA and HHNS. Another question, what do you understand by HbA1c? HbA1c. Well, HbA1c is it gives you, this is a test, your blood test to measure the sugar level during the last 3 months, average blood sugar of last 3 months. Why average blood sugar of last 3 months? Because the life of your red blood cells is 120 days. So this gives a fair amount of the uh, sugar control during the last 3 months. This test uh, tells you that how good or bad your diabetes has been during the last 3 months. Now, another question which emerged out of this question as a follow-up question. One of the experts asked, what does HbA1c stand for? None of the candidate was able to answer this question. Now listen carefully. HbA1c. Hb is hemoglobin. A is adult. Adult hemoglobin, which is 95 to 98% in the human beings. HbA. Then one is subgroup of hemoglobin, adult hemoglobin. Adult hemoglobin का सब ग्रुप जो है that is 1. And C is another subgroup, which is called section. C is section because HbA1 has three components: HbA1a, HbA1b, and HbA1c. Now, this HbA1c is a specific part of hemoglobin where glucose is attached, which is glycated, right? So, this is HbA1c is glycated hemoglobin, more sugar in blood, thicker coating on hemoglobin. Then another question was asked, which enzyme is responsible for the attachment of glucose to hemoglobin? Some of the candidates were able to answer and some were not. Well, this is not an enzymatic process. The attachment of glucose to HbA1c is due to the excess amount of glucose in your blood. It is not an enzymatic action. Then, yes, then the ranges of HbA1c. It was asked that what is the normal range? If HbA1c is less than 5.7%, the it is normal. In some books it is written 5.6, in some books it is 5.3, but these days you will find 5.7% is normal if it is less than 5.7%. And if it is between 5.7 and 4.6%, it is pre-diabetes. And if it is more than 6.5%, 6.5% and higher, it is diabetes. Then another question which was asked related to this topic was, what do you mean by 5.7%? So, well, the answer is that 5.7% of your hemoglobin is glycated. That is the correct answer of this question. Then another question. I hadn't heard this term before. What is Somogyi effect? Somogyi effect. Well, Somogyi effect is rise in blood sugar in the morning after a low blood sugar episode during the night. What could be the cause? Before going to bed, you took too much insulin, which caused low blood sugar during the night. Or you might have skipped a meal during the night, which could cause this hypoglycemia during the night. And as a response to this hypoglycemic condition, your body reacts and it starts releasing stress hormones, which are glucagon, adrenaline, cortisol, and growth hormone. And these hormones, then they cause the liver to release glucose. So that results in hyperglycemia in the morning. This is called Somogyi effect. What is next? Yes. The next question was, it started with insulin and then different questions about different hormones and glands were asked. Which cells in pancreas produce insulin? The correct answer was beta cells. Then question was asked, which cells produce glucagon in insulin? That is alpha cells. Then was another hormone is also produced in the pancreas, uh, which is the name of the hormone is somatostatin. Which cells produce somatostatin? That is delta cells. And then another question was asked that pancreas performs both the functions, endocrine and exocrine. So production of hormones is an endocrinal function, but it produces enzymes also, lipase, amylase, trypsinogen. Which cells are responsible for production of those enzymes? The correct answer was acinar cells. Acinar cells. Then was, uh, yes, the question was, are there any other heterocrine glands besides um, pancreas? Yes, gonads, kidneys, liver. Liver produces bile, which is an exocrine function, and it produces IGF-1, which is IGF-1. What is IGF-1? Insulin-like growth factor 1. That is a hormone. So liver also has both of them. Similarly, kidney. It produces renin. Renin is both an enzyme and a hormone, and it produces hormones also, kidney. And then your gonad. By the way, small intestine also acts as an exocrine and endocrine gland. Well, another question was what is hyperinsulinemia? Hyperinsulinemia. Now, hyperinsulinemia means the excess amount of insulin in the blood. How does it occur? What happens is that when your body cells do not respond to insulin and they do not allow the insulin to open them and let the glucose enter the cells, the glucose is accumulated in your blood, but your body needs energy and glucose is not allowed to work to produce energy. So, as a result, your pancreas produces more insulin, and that insulin also starts getting accumulated in your blood. And what happens is your pancreas is exhausted and it no longer produces sufficient insulin, and that is how diabetes develops in adults. This is type 2 diabetes. So, hyperinsulinemia, insulinemia causes many other complications also, uh, but you can read those yourself. Okay. Uh, I think that is all for today. These were the questions which were mostly diabetes related questions, but some, yes, I remember there was another question. Why uh, does the skin of the diabetic people remain dry? Yes. Your sweat glands, they they are they are controlled by autoimmune system. You see, sorry, autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. I'm sorry, not autoimmune. Autonomic nervous system. When those nerves get damaged and they do not send the signal to the sweat glands, they do not excrete sweat, and your skin becomes dry, and then cracks can develop in your skin, and bacteria can enter into the cells, and infection can be caused. So that is how your skin remains dry. So this was all for today. Thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz.